Hi, welcome to Module 7, Building and Leading High Performance Work Teams. I'm Dr. Prabhakar Ghantasala, Associate Dean, School of Business, Southern Connecticut State University. The learning objectives of this module, we want to understand what makes a dynamic team, what are the principles that actually help us create those kind of dynamic teams. We also want to understand what's the concept of psychological safety. The purpose of these learning objectives is to figure out how do we, as leaders, as agile leaders, constitute effective teams, make them high performing, and ensure an environment that these high performing teams are sustainable, are resilient, and continue to contribute to organizational goals. How do actually teams form within organizations? There are 5 stages of team dynamics. The stages are forming, storming, norming, performing, and the fifth stage being adjourning. So the forming stage is when actually teams come together, where you can, as an agile leader, very intentionally, with a strong purpose, with clearly defined expectations, and defining the roles each team member plays in each team, you can create teams. And when you create or form teams, it's important to understand the purpose of the team, the vision and the objectives that it sets forth for achieving, and make sure that the members of this team have complementary skills. And it's also important that you define clear expectations, that each member in the team understands their role and they exactly know what to do once they are part of the team. The second phase of team dynamics is storming phase. There's plenty of discussion going on in the team, a lot of conflicting situations, and that is where members have to be smart enough and capable enough to work with conflicts, to understand differences, to meet regularly, to trash out all the differences, to iron out all the wrinkles that might be there, and managing conflict in constructive ways. And this is a phase of defining what we want to do as a team. This is also a phase where cohesion is built up, strong levels of motivation, engagement, and involvement are developed. And that's why we find a lot of growth opportunities as a team. Following the storming phase is the norming phase, when a team agrees to do certain things, decides and defines goals that are actionable. Every team member knows exactly what their roles are. They can clearly define workflow patterns, and that is where everything is defined in terms of expectations, goal expectations, behavioral expectations, and those are the norms that drive the team towards achieving and accomplishing the goals that it sets forth for itself. The fourth phase is a very important phase of performing and is characterized by high performance. Now, high performance teams are self monitoring, they're self driven, highly motivated. They comprise of members with complementary skills. They have a shared purpose and vision. They have individual as well as mutual accountability. And that's why they are capable of churning out high performance based on strong cohesion and also synergy. Now, once the objectives of the team are satisfied and high performance work teams are accomplishing what they are supposed to be accomplishing, the fifth stage could be a journey, meaning which the team can be dissolved, reconstituted, reconfigured based on the requirements of the organization moving forward. The fifth stage of adjourning is not mentioned here, assuming the fact that these teams continue to work and continue to innovate and are long term. So, those are the 5 stages of Tuckman's stages of team dynamics that are essential for us to understand as agile leaders and to figure out why and how teams must be constituted to achieving high performance towards achieving organizational as well as team goals. The second learning objective of today's module is psychological safety. It's important that members of the organization, whether they work as individuals or within the team context, experience a high sense of psychological safety. Employees, fellow workers have to feel this sense of psychological safety and belongingness to the company so that they continue to work at the topmost capacity, highly motivated, they're fully engaged, they're involved, and they also actually deliver impactful outcomes, which actually keep them satisfied and create that sense of self fulfillment and self actualization. The first key element for creating psychological safety is building trust. Now, trust building as an agile leader, one must understand, is built on based on open communication, having clear policies, stating these policies, any changes that are discussed, everybody's aware of the changes that are going to be affected, decisions that are clearly discussed. There are owners of certain decisions and processes and actions, and any kind of rewards, recognitions that are given are based on criteria that are openly discussed again. Announcements are made to that effect. Transparency is very important to creating trust. Failure tolerance, again, very important to building trust because you're, as an agile leader, you want to build teams and organizations that are driven by innovation. You have to have some level of risk tolerance as well as failure tolerance. So you've got to make people understand that you're creating a culture here that fosters, supports, and strengthens innovation, that fosters and strengthens thinking outside the box, and that means there is an inbuilt risk tolerance within the organization. Resources are provided, training is provided, skill and competency development is supported towards building an innovative, learning driven organization. The second element of creating psychological safety is the options and opportunities that you have for sharing ideas, for listening out to diverse perspectives, because that is the fundamental basis of innovation. So, what we together call as idea sharing and diverse perspectives is what we call as voice encouragement. There is the forum that have been created, time that has been set aside, opportunities that are mobilized for sharing ideas, for discussing openly different perspectives for a same problem. That fosters a sense of engagement, that fosters a sense of participation, and also builds a lot of trust. It also provides uh, venues that can actually help employees, team members, individual or group or team entities to come forth and also discuss resolving certain problems from different dimensions. The third aspect of creating psychological safety is building a learning culture. As we discussed earlier in earlier modules, Netflix's feedback culture. Important stakeholders are brought to the table by Netflix to discuss content, to discuss the entertainment value of the content that Netflix wants to stream or is developing or is producing. And that feedback is taken seriously. Incremental changes, modifications are built into the product itself before it goes on Netflix's streaming. So learning is a continuous process, and these process improvements or individual skill and professional competence development is a kind of culture that agile leaders foster in an organization. So continuous improvement or Kanban is a kind of cultural element that is looked upon by agile leaders as being very important for creating a growth mindset, for creating psychological safety, for also keeping employees and teams engaged and motivated in a sustainable way. I would strongly recommend you to be watching a video on growth mindset or creating psychological safety. It's available on YouTube. It will give you a better sense of what we have been discussing so far in terms of elements that are required for creating psychological safety. What actually are the characteristics that define a high performing team? So the first and foremost thing, as I discussed earlier, is a clear sense of purpose. Example being Tesla's mission alignment, having a shared vision, having clearly set goals. That means there should be enough discussion, open communication, level of trust that actually agile leaders mobilize for team members to define for themselves a clear vision, clearly defined KPIs, and they exactly know what they want to accomplish as goals. That's the first important thing that actually characterizes a high performance work team. The second one is strong leadership. Example of Apple's product teams. Apple is driven by design culture, and so the design elements are extremely important. Apple's products are characterized by strong design elements, efficiency in hardware, integration of the software, creating a user interface that's reliable, also secure. And so obviously the design elements are possible because Apple brings in strong leadership to the table. There is setting of a direction for organizational members and teams. There's a lot of support provision for mobilizing any of the innovative product ideas or improvements that Apple teams are continuously working on. Extremely driven by innovation, they're driven on quality, and that is why Apple has had a sustained success because of agile, innovation-based leadership. The third element that characterizes high performance teams are effective processes. Now, you've got to create, as an agile leader, working agreements that can help efficiencies in process, efficiencies in workflow, and that you have to deal with bottlenecks, overcome obstacles. As an agile leader, you create those pathways and trajectories where obstacles are overcome, bottlenecks are reduced, and greater workflow efficiency is managed. I strongly recommend you to watch decision making video that's termed High Performance Teams in Action. McKinsey is the one that has produced that video. Is available on YouTube for you to watch. Now, we are also talking about trust and collaboration a while ago. Now, these pretty much are very important for teams to be high performing. And how do you create trust and collaboration? What are the building blocks of creating trust and collaboration within team context? As an agile leader, you got to understand authentic sharing of information and ideas is extremely important to building collaboration. Authentic sharing of ideas and open communication is also important for creating mutual trust among organizational members or team members. The fact that you're able to communicate, risk taking is promoted, risk taking is supported, and there is a measure of risk tolerance can only be a building block for creating trust, for fostering collaboration on a long term level. Accountability, as I just mentioned earlier, good teams, high performance work teams have members who have individual accountability as well as mutual accountability. So clear expectations are there, feedback on performance is available, expectations that are clearly communicated to team members, and everyone holds each other accountable as much as they hold themselves accountable. The third building block in creating trust and collaboration as a cultural element, an agile leader has to make sure there's goal alignment. Every now and then, an agile leader has to make a reference to the vision, the mission, the goals, and the strategies that are overarching. That every member in the organization is integral is a very important spoke to the wheel. And obviously, it means that goal alignment is a continuous thing. When you set forth goals, when you create KPIs, when you have these one-to-one discussions, whether it's at the individual level or these are discussions engaging teams, it's important that there is a sense of goal alignment that lets teams as well as individuals align their effort towards achieving results, results that are impactful at the individual level, at the team level, and at the organizational level. In the process, you're creating this sense of trust and collaboration that's impactful, that's effective. Obviously, there are certain things that you have to be mindful as an agile leader when you talk in terms of high performance teams or team building and collaboration and creating trust. It's the nature of conflict. Creative people would definitely have conflict. Now, conflict can be functional conflict or dysfunctional conflict. And the functional conflict is good because it brings out diverse perspectives, different dimensionality for every problem that is on hand, and obviously having different perspectives and thinking outside the box. It's normal that two people do not agree on everything, and consensus can be built on discussion, open communication, based off on data that has been collected and validated. So there's a positive side of conflict management, which is called functional conflict, which is integral to an innovation culture. How do you manage conflict in a positive way is because you're focused on issues, you're focused on the problems on hand, and you're also focused on generating solutions rather than beating up somebody or having a blame game. So the issue focus on problems and focus on solutions is some positive conflict resolution management skills that every agile leader must have. There should also be constructive dialogue if you want to manage conflict and if you want to make sure you build consensus, as I just mentioned. You got to take in stakeholders' perspective. Most of the times we have a very short sight in the way we look at problems. We might look at, hey, what is that my organization or teams can offer? Rather, if you actually listen to your customers, your other stakeholders like suppliers and vendors, government agencies, regulatory bodies, society at large, communities at large, if you listen to all your stakeholders, that is where you get a constructive dialogue going for you, gathering your feedback, like how Toyota did with Nemawashi, and building that consensus among employees through informal discussions and then making a formal decision or implementing a significant change is then possible because you've given yourself a chance to listen to all your stakeholders. And building consensus then becomes that much more easier because you're now focused on creating solutions that address several problems of your clientele or your customers. Another positive way of looking at conflict management is creating that learning orientation. Focus on innovation, having the mindset of improvement and continuous improvement, learning from each other and learning from past mistakes, creating uh, a nice database of all the learning that has happened in the past is very important for creating a learning orientation. Once you have done that, you'll be able to manage conflict in a constructive way. You also are important, in terms of creating that kind of accountability for a team. An agile leader must measure team performance. And the key metrics for measuring a team performance is looking at productivity, quality, and innovation rates. These are called output measures, and we're very interested in measuring how productive are teams, what kind of quality metrics can be used to measure the quality of the work, how satisfied are our customers or clients? How innovative is our product or service that we are offering when compared to competition? That's extremely important to keep yourself competitive and to be able to sustain that competitive advantage over a long-term period. And the second, metrics that set of metrics that we must use to measure high performance work teams is process measures. How collaborative are teams within our organization? How effective is that collaboration is something that we want to look at from time to time. Decision quality, the quality of decisions that are taken within the organization, between teams, and at the organizational level. How effectively are we able to use our meeting times, like the one we are doing today right now? How effective is it when you listen to my class, look at the slides, and understand the practical implication and application of these methods in the organizational context if you aspire to be an agile leader in uncertain times? There's a third set of metrics which is very important for measuring team performance, which we call as people measures. Engagement scores, how many number of employees and stakeholders are engaged in all that we do. Trust levels, how much of ideas are being shared, how many new methods are being shared across, how many conferences do we organize and participate in, what level of research is being engaged in, what intergroup or interdepartmental collaboration is being mobilized. These are important people measures, and also the general motivation level, job satisfaction level, involvement level. These are clear indicators of the people measures that are important for measuring team performance. I would strongly recommend for you to watch Team Performance Metrics by Gallup, available on YouTube for you to understand measuring team performance through several metrics, which include output measures, process measures, and people measures. Agile leaders will run into common challenges and solutions that we will present here. Again, not a very exhaustive list, but these are stuff that can happen on a day-to-day basis across several organizations. I put together a list of 3 challenges and possible solutions that agile leaders must know while creating and managing and measuring high performance work teams output and performance. The first kind of challenge is virtual collaboration. Suppose your organization has global presence, and obviously it means that members are not there in physical, in-person settings, and you cannot create collaborative meetings in person. You have this virtual collaboration using technologies. But what are the solution tools? Obviously, you understand digital tools and practices like the one that we are using today. For me to be able to come in front of you and have the opportunity to share my knowledge and experience in creating agile leaders for uncertain times, which is an extremely important topic, all that has been possible because of digital tools. So as the same case with agile leaders working in corporates, and if they're managing teams that are globally widespread, obviously you have to use the right set of digital tools, be mindful of time zone differences, cultural sensitivities. Following into the challenge number two is cultural differences. Make sure as an agile leader you have enough inclusion strategies. You've got to be aware of the cultural differences across different organization units across the world. When you have global presence, you've got to be sensitive to cultural differences, the symbols, the practices, the belief systems, the values that are held by people that work across your organizational units across the globe. You've got to be aware of that, and for which you have to make sure you have enough inclusion strategies, including observance of local holidays, cultural holidays, and festivals, being mindful and respectful of those kind of differences also is part of inclusion strategies. The third type of challenge is performance issues. Now, when you are having global presence and you have your own organizational units spread across the globe, you might want to make sure that clear expectations are there, regular feedback is taken. You might also want to make sure as an agile leader, you're aware and sensitive to local markets, local challenges, and not measure every person's performance based on one yardstick. It's important that you incorporate in performance management the kind of contextual elements which are very specific to a particular region or market space or a specific customer group that we are serving at a global location. So if you're able to anticipate these kind of challenges, like challenges that are created by your very diverse presence across the globe, virtual collaboration is a challenge, and you face it with digital tools. Cultural difference is definitely going to be a challenge because your organization operates across the globe, and for which you've got to have the right set of inclusion strategies, and also because your operations are in different zones, different parts of the world, different countries across the globe, you got to factor in performance related issues, local contextual issues, challenges that are very specific to a particular region or a country. Those factors have to be taken into consideration while having clear expectations communicated, also KPIs defined, and how we use measures to evaluate performance. I would strongly suggest for you to watch two videos on this particular module, Overcoming Team Challenges by Harvard Business Review, a very good video that you can watch on YouTube, and the High Performance Summary, and that's also available on YouTube for you to watch. These are two important videos that can help you, and there are several other additional resources that I have mentioned at the back end of this module. The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. It's a good reading that you might really learn from. Team of Teams by Stanley McChrystal, another good read. There are online courses from Coursera called Leading Teams, edX, Building High Performance Teams, and the communities that is Society for Human Resource Management, which is a real good source for you to read about teams, team building, collaboration, high performance work teams, and the challenges faced in teams, including conflict management. Thank you.